The 12-hour clock is a time convention in which the 24 hours of the day are divided into two periods, AM and PM. Each period consists of 12 hours numbered 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. The 24-hour day cycle starts at 12 midnight, runs through 12 noon, and continues to the midnight at the end of the day. The 12-hour clock was developed over time from the mid-2nd millennium BC to the 16th century AD. History and use. The natural day-night division of a calendar day forms the fundamental basis as to why each day is split into two cycles. Originally these were one cycle which could be tracked by the position of the sun, followed by one cycle which could be tracked by the moon and stars. This would eventually evolve into the two 12-hour periods that started at midnight and noon, which are used today. Noon itself is rarely abbreviated today, but if it is denoted M. The 12-hour clock can be traced back as far as Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. Both an Egyptian sundial for daytime use and an Egyptian water clock for nighttime use were found in the tomb of Pharaoh Amenhotep I. Dating to c. 1500 BC, these clocks divided their respective times of use into 12 hours each. The Romans also used a 12-hour clock. Daylight was divided into 12 equal hours and the night was divided into 4 watches. The first mechanical clocks in the 14th century, if they had dials at all, showed all 24 hours, using the 24-hour analog dial. Influenced by astronomers' familiarity with the astrolabe sundial, and their desire to model the apparent motion of the sun, in Northern Europe these dials generally used the 12-hour numbering scheme in Roman numerals, but showed both AM and PM periods in sequence. This is known as the double 12 system, and can be seen on many surviving clock faces, such as those at Wells and Exeter. Elsewhere in Europe, particularly in Italy, numbering was more likely to be based on the 24-hour system, reflecting the Italian style of counting the hours. The 12-hour clock was used throughout the British Empire. During the 15th and 16th centuries, the 12-hour analog dial and time system gradually became established as standard throughout Northern Europe for general public use. The 24-hour analog dial was reserved for more specialized applications, such as astronomical clocks and chronometers. Most analog clocks and watches today use the 12-hour dial, on which the shorter hour hand rotates once every 12 hours and twice in one day. Some analog clock dials have an inner ring of numbers along with the standard 1 to 12 numbered ring. The number 12 is paired either with a 00 or a 24, while the numbers chapter 1 through 11 are paired with the numbers chapter 13 through 23, respectively. This modification allows the clock to be read also in the 24-hour notation. The 12-hour clock can be found in countries where the 24-hour clock is preferred use by country. In several countries the 12-hour clock is the dominant written and spoken system of time. Other countries use the 12-hour clock mainly in spoken time, while the 24-hour notation is written. In most countries the 12-hour clock is used in speech alongside the 24-hour clock. The 12-hour clock in speech often uses phrases such as in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and at night. Outside of English-speaking countries, the terms AM and PM are seldom used and often unknown. In England, the descriptive phrases were universal until relatively recently, e.g., Ryder's British Merlin Almanac for 1795 uses them, and so does a similar almanac for 1773. Computer support. In most countries, computers by default show the time in 24-hour notation. Most operating systems, including Microsoft Windows and Unix-like systems such as Linux and Mac OS, activate the 12-hour notation by default for a limited number of language and region settings. The behavior can be changed by the user, for example in Windows 7, region and language settings. In Windows, AM/PM notations are independent of 12 or 24-hour numbering, allowing the clock to display 16:18:12 p.m. For example, abbreviations. The Latin abbreviations AM and PM are used in English and Spanish. The equivalents in Greek are pi, micro, and micro, respectively, and in Sinhala, fran, 4. However, noon is rarely abbreviated in any of these languages, noon normally being written in full. Most other languages lack formal abbreviations for before noon and afternoon, and their users use the 12-hour clock only orally and informally. However, in many languages, such as Russian and Hebrew, informal designations are used, such as 9 in the morning or 3 in the night. When abbreviations and phrases are omitted, one may rely on sentence context and societal norms to reduce ambiguity. For example, if one schedules an appointment with a doctor at 900, one may mean 9 a.m., but if a social dance is scheduled to begin at 900, it may begin at 9 p.m. Related conventions. Typography. The terms AM and PM are abbreviations of the Latin ante meridiem and post meridiem. Depending on the style guide referenced, the abbreviations AM and PM are variously written in small capitals, uppercase letters, or lowercase letters. Some style books suggest the use of a space between the number and the AM or PM abbreviation. Style guides recommend not using AM and PM without a time preceding it, although doing so can be advantageous when describing an event that always happens before or after noon. The hour-minute separator varies between countries. Some use a colon, others use a period. In coding there are symbols for AM U+33C2 and PM U+33D8 in Unicode. In formal speech and rounding off, it is common to round a time to the nearest 5 minutes and express the time as so many minutes past an hour or minutes to an hour. The period 15 minutes is often expressed as a quarter, and 30 minutes is expressed as half. The time 8:45 is spoken as quarter to 9. Moreover, in situations where the relevant hour is obvious or has been recently mentioned, speakers can state simply quarter to, half past, etc. to avoid elaborate sentences in particularly informal conversations. This form is also used in television and radio broadcasts that cover multiple time zones which are at 1-hour intervals. Instead of meaning 5:30, the half-5 expression is sometimes used to mean 4:30, i.e., halfway to 5, especially in the more German-influenced parts of the USA. The halfway to 5 meaning follows the usage in many Germanic and Slavic languages and in Dutch, Finnish, Hungarian and Indonesian. Formal speech and times to the minute. Minutes may be expressed as an exact number of minutes past the hour, specifying the time of day. When expressing the time using the past or to formula, it is conventional to choose the number of minutes below 30. Times of day ending in 00 minutes are often said in English as the numbered hour followed by a clock. This may be followed by the AM or PM designator, though phrases such as in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, or at night more commonly follow analog-style terms such as o'clock, 3:30, and 4:45. A clock itself may be omitted, telling a time as 4 a.m. or 4 p.m. Minutes 01 to 09 are usually pronounced as 01 to 09. Minutes 10 to 59 are pronounced as their usual number words. For instance, 6:02 a.m. can be pronounced 6:02 a.m., 6:32 a.m. could be told as 6:32 a.m. Confusion at noon and midnight. It is not always clear what times 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. denote. From the Latin words meridies, ante and post, the term ante-meridiem means before midday and post-meridiem means after midday. Since, strictly speaking, noon is neither before nor after itself, the terms AM and PM do not apply. The American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language has a usage note on this topic. By convention, 12 a.m. denotes midnight and 12 p.m. denotes noon. Because of the potential for confusion, it is advisable to use 12 noon and 12 midnight. E.G. Richards in his book Mapping Time provided a diagram in which 12 a.m. means noon and 12 p.m. means midnight. Many U.S. style guides and NIST's frequently asked questions web page recommend that it is clearest if one refers to noon or 1200 noon and midnight or 1200 midnight. The Canadian Press Style Book says, write noon or midnight, not 12 noon or 12 midnight. Phrases such as 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. are not mentioned at all. Britain's National Physical Laboratory Fact Time webpage states, in cases where the context cannot be relied upon to place a particular event, the pair of days straddling midnight can be quoted. Also, the terms 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. should be avoided. Likewise, some U.S. style guides recommend either clarifying midnight with other context clues, such as specifying the two dates between which it falls, or not referring to midnight at all. For an example of the latter method, midnight is replaced with 11:59 p.m. for the end of a day or 12:01 a.m. for the start of a day. That has become common in the United States in legal contracts and for airplane, bus, or train schedules, though some schedules use other conventions. Occasionally, when trains run at irregular intervals, the pattern may be broken at midnight by displacing the midnight departure 1 or more minutes, such as to 23:59 or 0:01. The 24-hour clock notation avoids these ambiguities by using 0000 for midnight at the start of the day and 1200 for noon. From 23:59:59 the time shifts to 00:00:00, the beginning of the next day. In 24-hour notation, 2400 can be used to refer to midnight at the end of a day. In Britain, various conventions are employed. TV Mag, Sun newspaper, London, the 17th of December 2005 uses noon and midnight in individual listings. Sequential listings start with AM or PM as appropriate, but these indicators are not used again, although in sublistings 12 midnight is sometimes employed. The London Daily Telegraph uses 12:00 noon and 12:00 midnight in individual listings. In sequential listings, the first program to start after 12:00 is marked AM or PM as appropriate.